What if you could know, with scary good accuracy, which businesses were destined to fail? It sounds like something out of a movie, right? But it's a question researchers are taking on right now with the power of artificial intelligence. Today, we are diving deep into a fascinating study that pits AI against one of the toughest challenges in all of finance, predicting when a company is about to go bankrupt. So, the core question is just that simple. Can a piece of code, an algorithm, really look at a company's data and predict its downfall? And believe me, this is not just some academic thought experiment. The answer has massive real-world consequences for investors, for lenders, and, of course, for employees all over the world. Okay, so before we get into the how, let's just make sure we're all on the same page about the what. The paper we're looking at defines bankruptcy very clearly. It's when a company just can't pay its bills anymore. It can't meet its financial obligations. And, this usually isn't a sudden thing, but it's often the final step after a long period of financial trouble. And making this prediction? Well, it's harder today than it has ever been. Why? Because as the researchers point out, we are living in what they call a VUCA world. That's an acronym. It stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And in that kind of unpredictable, messy environment, the old ways of doing things, they can fall short really easily. So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at why this is such a high-stakes prediction game. Then we'll flip through the old playbook to see how we used to do it. After that, we'll see how the researchers designed their AI detective, put it to the test, and finally, we'll go over what we actually learned from the whole thing. All right, first up, a high-stakes game. Let's really dig into why spotting financial trouble early isn't just about saving a single company, it's about the health of the entire economy. This quote from the study really gets right to the heart of the matter. For decades, we've been building models to try and predict bankruptcy, but most of them just haven't been consistently accurate. And the researchers here argue that the issue isn't a lack of effort. It's a fundamental flaw in the design of those older models. And that leads us right to the old playbook. To really appreciate why we need a new approach, we have to understand the history, how we've tried to crack this nut in the past. This history is actually a pretty cool evolution of thinking. It all started way back in the 1930s with really simple single-factor analysis, basically looking at just one financial number at a time. Then, in 1968, a huge leap forward with Altman's famous Z-score, which combined multiple financial ratios. The 80s and 90s brought in more advanced statistics, even some early neural networks, which leads us right into the AI era we're in today. And this right here, this highlights the fundamental difference, the big idea. Traditional models needed a human, a researcher, to say, I think these factors are important. With modern AI, you can just feed it a massive amount of data, and the algorithm itself finds the hidden patterns. It lets the data tell the story. Which brings us to section 3, designing the AI detective. So how did the researchers actually set up their experiment to put these new techniques to a really tough test against the old ones? Well, the investigation started with a mountain of evidence from over 1,000 companies. The researchers fed their models 63 different financial ratios. Think of them like 63 separate clues to a company's overall health. But here's the twist. All those standard financial clues, they might not capture the impact of something completely unexpected, a true black swan event that just changes everything. And the researchers had the perfect case study right in front of them, the global shock of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is where the study gets really clever. They added one more clue. This 64th variable was designed to be a proxy, kind of like a stand-in for the uncertainty that COVID caused. They measured it by tracking the change in a company's operating expenses, basically guessing that pandemic shutdowns would cause a huge, unusual dip. Now, to make sure their results were rock solid, they followed a very strict process. After getting all the data, they fixed an imbalance in it. It's a technique called undersampling, just to make sure the AI wasn't biased. Then, they trained 6 different models using those 63 traditional clues. They tested them, and only then did they add that special COVID clue to run the tests all over again. It's a classic before and after experiment. All right, now for the main event, putting the models to work. After all that careful setup, which of these AI detectives actually solved the case? The whole experiment really boiled down to 2 key questions. First, are these modern machine learning techniques actually better than a traditional statistical model called logistic regression,
which has been a standard for decades? And second, does adding that special clue for COVID-19 uncertainty, does it actually make the predictions better?
And wow, the results are crystal clear. The old school logistic regression model was right about 66% of the time. Not bad. But the machine learning models, they just blew it out of the water. The neural network hit over 75% accuracy, and the random forest model was even a tiny bit better. That is a huge jump in accuracy, pretty much proving the AI detectives are way better at their job. So that answers the first question. But then came the crucial next step. They introduced that 64th clue, that proxy for the pandemic uncertainty, into the mix. What would happen now? And this result, right here, shows the true power of context. If we just focus on their best model, the random forest, they found that without the COVID clue, its accuracy was 75.3%. With the COVID clue, it nudged up to 75.8%. Now, I know what you're thinking, 0.5%, that's it. But in the world of financial risk, that tiny improvement can translate to millions or even billions of dollars in saved assets. It's a huge deal. So after putting this AI through its paces, what did we actually learn? Let's break down the key takeaways from this whole investigation. It's actually beautifully simple. The results confirmed both of the researchers' main hypotheses. First, yes, machine learning models like random forest are way, way better than the old statistical methods at this. And second, yes, adding a variable that accounts for real-world chaos, for uncertainty, it actually improves the model's predictive power. So here's the bottom line, what you should really take away from this. We're seeing clear proof that modern AI is a much more powerful tool for this task. But, and this is a big but, it is not magic. The best results come from feeding these models not just the standard financial data, but also these clever clues that capture what's really happening in the world. And this matters a ton, because every tiny improvement in predicting who's going to fail has massive ripple effects across our entire economy. And that leaves us with a really fascinating final question to think about. We've seen that AI is getting remarkably good at predicting failure. So the question for the future isn't just about making this one prediction perfect. It's about what other complex, high-stakes problems we should challenge these powerful new tools to predict next. What's the next frontier?